Welcome everyone, today I have a special guide for Diablo 4. Now as you guys can see behind me, this is a very special guide that I've been working on for a long time. So what I want to do is, I want to have all the bucket lists of the damage multipliers in Diablo 4 for any of the classes. And what I want to do is, I want to show you guys what happens when you have, let's say, 19% core skill damage, what happens when you have vulnerability damage, and what happens when you have other forms of damage. And this can give us a better summary. So let me show you guys an example over here. Let's say if I was able to get my critical rate to 500%, this will show me the changes of translations of damage and how much damage I get. Actually, I did one extra zero. This is 5000%. So here you can see if I get my critical rate to 500%, we get 23% bonus damage in terms of output overall. Now let's say if we only got 150% critical damage, this means we actually lose about 26% damage. And this is actually quite important because this particular table and also calculator too I have made for you guys should help you to determine which of the stats will give you the highest source of damage by changing your gears. Because as we go through in the game, you're going to have different stats on your gears, and they should help you to determine what is the best stats for your build for the highest damage. Now over here, I have also prepared some notes for you guys to have a look at that can be a little bit of reference, because I think most class will want those stats in general. So I did a generalized guide which will help us to understand what are some of the nice stats for most of the classes on any of the gear parts, and this should help you guys get started. And also what are the weapon choices, and also what does those weapon do for you as a bonus. For example, I'm currently using a sword. You can see on top of the sword, it has 26.2% critical damage bonus. And for different weapon types, you have different bonus weapons and also different bonus effects. You should be knowing those. And over here I have a bit of summary and also a bit of understanding to show you guys. So as you guys can see, there's a lot of things I want to go through with you guys, and let's get started. Now coming over to Excel, what I recommend is, if you want to use Excel, of course you want to use Excel, right? Because you're not going to use my numbers. So come over to Files and click Make a Copy. And this will allow you to make a copy of my existing copy of Excel. And then you can input your data into Excel and also see how your gears and also stats will affect your character. And this is very important. Now right away, you guys can see there's a lot of numbers. Well, the numbers that is going to be really interesting are going to be the numbers that is going to be below over here, like critical rate, critical damage, and also any of the rates and also bonus damage you have over here. I haven't really done any much of the calculations for those multipliers for weapon types and also attack speed, because it's a little harder to see and it's harder for me to tell with different classes. So focus on the rates behind over here and all the numbers over here. Now at the start of the video, I briefly showed you guys what happens when you have a lot of critical rate. So this can work in multiple ways. So the first tab on the columns of B, this is the numbers you input as your base numbers. So what I do is I'll show you guys my character over here. And you can probably, this will take you a little time, but once you do this once, the next time you don't have to do as much. So you can see I have inputted all the values I have on my character and all the values that's over here onto this particular tab, which is the baseline. And then the next line is going to be when you change into your new stats. For example, if I was able to get my critical rate to 50%, on the expected damage increase, I'll increase my damage by 44%. And this is actually pretty massive, right? So if I increase my critical rate by, that's a 26%, this is how much damage you'll get for the bonus damage. And this will be the case for most of the stats over here. Let's say if I'm increasing all damage by 50%, and this will increase my overall damage by 36%. And this is especially important because sometimes you have legendary effects that provide you with overall damage by 50%. And this is something you can adjust in the calculator to show your damage. So as a summary, to use this calculator, what you do is you can see the summary stats in your class, right? And also in character. You can just follow the line, starting with critical chance and follow everything that's included. Now, it is likely for different classes and also different weapon types, you have different type of stats over here. So let me show you what I mean by that. So here we're going to switch a weapon, and I'll show you guys over here. By switching on the X, I all of a sudden have that bonus damage to healthy targets before I don't have these stats. So depending on the weapons you're using and also depending on your skills, depending on your character, you will have bonus damage that is added to your character. Now similarly, there will also be certain status effect that is ongoing for your character. For example, by switching onto this weapon, I now have bonus damage to Berserk, and this was not available previously to my character. And this is something you do want to know. And finally, just show you guys one more example. Notice here I don't have bonus damage versus enemies when fortified. But if I come over to my glyph and add one of my glyph into my socketing, which is my build, right? So now I have 10% bonus damage or 10.7% bonus damage against Fortified. So notice there's a lot of inside information, or not really inside information, there's a lot of detailed information that you should be aware of. And we have counted those, or we have tried to adjust for those in Excel. So what you can see over here is at the start of the table rates, those are the most common ones. And then later you might have some uncommon ones, which we'll talk about very soon, like Fortify, like, physical damage or no physical damage. And later on, you might have other factors or multipliers, which it's not from my class because I'm using Barbarian, right? Let's say if you're using bonus damage while you are healthy, or you're dealing bonus damage when enemies are healthy. So those things you can be adjusted into this yourself, and this will be translating. For example, let's say if I'm having a bonus of other bonus, let's say if I'm getting 50% bonus damage. So I have this 0, and this is how I started with 0%. This is how I will become with 50%. So what I mean by that is, let's say if my mace, the special effect of the mace is triggered, and this means all of a sudden I have 50% bonus damage. You can see that by changing those two values, this shows me I have a boost of damage by 50%, and this shows a change of damage. Now, of course, guys, I'm not sure if the damage for the bonus damage from that particular effect is counted over here separately, or maybe it is counted over here with all damage. So what that means is this will turn me into 59.6% bonus damage, and this will show me the damage increase is by 45%. So there will be something you'll be figuring out yourself, but using this table, as long as you know what to do, it's gonna be very useful. Now, I know I keep saying as long as you know what to do, right? So what do you need to do? Firstly, you input all your stats over here. And if any stats that I have missed, that is on your glyph, on your weapons, on your effect, you put those stats over here. And then you put your new stats, the change of stats over here as a comparison. And the numbers over here will show you the flat damage changes and also the percentage changes. Now here we're using a base weapon damage of 2000. You can be adjusting this as well, and you can see the weapon changes. Let's say if my weapon now deals 2100 damage, and this will show me the changes of damage overall in terms of the weapon. Now, if you guys haven't subscribed, it is a really good time to do so, because I'll be covering tons of Diablo 4 related topics and also videos and also guides. We'll be looking to the top meta builds, non-meta builds, leveling up, and also Paragon tricks. We're also looking to the latest events and also official updates, and also changes to different characters and also different builds in the game. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and also turn the notification on, because a lot of you who are watching the videos have not subscribed. You can see 80% of the viewers who are watching our videos have not subscribed, so make sure you subscribe to stay tuned for the latest update for Diablo 4. Now, for those of you guys that want to go things into more details, let me briefly explain the calculations of critical rate, critical injury rate, and also overpower rate. So what I'm doing is I'm using expected values, and here the expected values of the critical damage is a combination of the critical rate and also 35% of the critical injury rate. So we're using expected values and we're using the overall damage provided. And what that means is the expected value of critical rate times critical damage plus 35% of the critical rate times critical damage. And this is the total amount of damage we'll be receiving as the total bonus damage. And this of course will give us the average damage. Because enemies are only injured 35% of the time, this is why I multiply by 35%. And similarly, you can see the overpower rate and also overpower damage is multiplied in terms of expected value. Now again guys, if you are having 100% overpower rate, you just put this as 100%, because some skills will trigger this 100% of the time. And this will show you the damage output bonus because of this. Now for my class as a barbarian, I have decided to take away those bonus damage from fire up to shadow damage, because likely I won't be dealing those damage. I'll still deal bonus damage with bleeding, but it is not that massive as well. So this is not a really good transformation of my damage. So I'm probably estimating damage a little higher. What I recommend is, let's say if you're dealing mostly damage with fire, and the calculator have values over here. You don't have to worry about those too much because it will be a little tedious to work on those. So what I recommend is come over here to add yourself a damage meter. So let's say if you're a fire mage and doing damage with fire. So what you do is you paste this in and then you say, okay, I started with 50% fire damage. All of a sudden I have 75% fire damage. And let's have a look at the changes on my damage. And this will show you the rates before the change and after the change. And this will show you the percentage of damage increase. So yes guys, you can ignore the data over here because I don't think it's easy to adjust for those, and a lot of classes I don't want to do multiple multipliers. But if you guys are good with Excel, maybe I can have mine to help me to adjust for this part. Now briefly coming over to the second part. Oh boy, I didn't expect to take this long to explain the Excel, but it takes a lot of work, and I do want to say a big thank you to all my guildmates and also clanmates who has been helping me farming for experience while I was crafting this Excel. Yes, I was like, I was kind of half AFK, half playing in the dungeons because I really want to spend some time to craft this Excel for you guys. Now over here, I have some additional notes that can be helpful for most of the classes. I'm not going to say this is the best stats for all of the classes, but this serves as a rough summary for the in-game build for most of the class priorities. So what I do is I have the data available over here for you to have a look, and my voice is dying so I can't make more recordings and I can't really talk much. So as a brief summary, for most of the pieces that can make use of the skill rank plus damage, you can be making use of this. These include the helmet, the chest, the gloves for the core skill bonus, and also for the pants for a lot of skill bonuses. And similarly, you can also go with skill bonuses on the boots. But other than that, there are some particular gear type specific stats. For example, you can be going with cooldown reduction on the helmet and also cooldown reduction on the amulet. You can be going with critical rate, critical damage, and vulnerability damage on your rings. And as for the gloves, everyone wants the critical rate. And after that, you can also get more critical rate against injured enemies. There's a lot of other things you can also roll onto the gloves, which is going to be very interesting. Now over here, we do have a list of the weapons and also its bonus effects. So in case you guys are curious which of the weapons to use, you can use this as a reference. And finally, for the weapons, usually for the classes that can use a weapon, it is preferable to use the two-handed sword or the one-handed sword, which provides you with bonus critical damage. And the ideal bonus damage for weapons, and usually the ideal bonus damage for weapons with substats are going to be primary stats, critical damage, vulnerability damage, and those are the top three. After that, if you have close or range damage, if you have slow damage or cold damage, that's really good. So the example over here, you can see all of my weapons are rolled into those. I have strength, vulnerability, critical damage, and also close damage. And finally guys, if you're going for boots, you can go with movement speed. Because the game, you don't want to move too slow, so you can see my boots have a lot of movement speed. You don't have to be extreme as me, but usually people want to go with movement speed, maybe bonus to skill damages, or bonus to skill ranks, and also primary stats. And those are going to be essential. Now, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. My voice is dying as well. And I really do think I deserve a subscribe or maybe a like in the comments. So make sure you leave a nice comment and let me know what you think about those calculations. Because I do have a bit of Excel background, my calculations are a little rough, but I want to provide you guys with all the information I can to give you the best experience in the game. Now, in case you guys didn't know, I'll be live streaming on Twitch again, and I have just started. So make sure to come over to the links below to join us on Twitch live to say hi, maybe ask me questions or share any tips with the viewers. And while you're here, make sure you follow. And if you do have your Twitch Prime, this is a really good time to use your Twitch Prime over here, supporting us with Twitch Prime. And yes guys, join us as I test build for Diablo, and also join us as you play the game and also farm the game. So stay a while and also listen. We'll also be doing some giveaways and also special viewer events in the Diablo as well. Maybe we do PvP and also related events in the game as we get to the end game, and also help players to go through the dungeons.